Welcome to the final day of the week of vaguely related two-parters. If in the last video you guessed that I was going to review a fan-made 3D printed Scorponok, then congratulations on being psychic. If you've been with the channel for a while, you'll probably recognize the name Monologi O Robotoch, also called Printformers. You know, the guy who made the upgrade kit for the Earthrise Wheeljack that I credit for saving the figure? Well, he also makes his own fully complete Transformers figures that you can either download off his shop and make yourselves, or completed ones that you can buy and have shipped to you. He contacted me and asked me if I'd like to take a look at one of his figures. Gave me the option of the Power Master Optimus Prime, Marvel Comic Fortress Maximus, or Marvel Scorponok. And I chose this one, which to give it its third-party name, we came up with the Marvelous Scorpion together. Now, you may be like, but Perspective, you always say that you won't buy Earthrise Scorponok because you hate his design. Why would this be the one you choose? And to that I say, you're right. I literally chose this just to mess with you guys. This is going to have to be a little bit of a different formula than normal, as this is a fan-made figure that doesn't belong to a multi-million-dollar toy line with a whole team of designers and engineers to make the figure work. Instead, I'm going to spend a good portion of this video making suggestions to Monologi how I think this could be improved. And he did tell me he wanted me to do that, so I'm going to try and give him as much criticism as possible. Criticism is not a bad thing. While change is not necessarily improvement, you cannot improve without change. Criticism is just giving you an idea what to change. So, anything I bring up is not necessarily a reason that you shouldn't want this if you do. It's just me telling him, in my opinion, what I think could make the figure better than it already is. I'm going to start my suggestions with these directions. I don't know if all the completed versions of the figure comes with these, or if it's just a nice thing that he sent to me. These are great, and they make it very clear what you have to do, but for some reason, every step comes with a start and finish shot. Every single one. But the finished shot of one is always going to be the starting shot of the next. If you don't include those, you will save yourself half the paper and ink. If you get one of these, and it does come with directions, there's a cautions page that tells you how to handle the figure as to not break it. This is important. So, let's talk about this marvelous bit of engineering. This is a masterpiece or old leader scale version I have right here. But if you get the files to 3D print this figure yourself, you should be able to scale it to whatever size you want it to be. So if you want a Little Legend Scorponok or a Titan-sized one, that's your prerogative. This is based on the Marvel comic, and as a result, the sculpted detail on the body is all very direct and simple. The comic wasn't a huge fan of intricate lines and designs on the surfaces of the characters. And at the same time, the comic was a huge fan of the Transformers having distressingly human faces. This figure is succeeding on both fronts. You can see in this picture just how different modern takes in the comics can be, the art having pivoted over to much more complex surfaces than the old style. On this, the details are basically perfect for the design it wants to emulate, and the face does scream, I am a human wearing a bunch of boxes and a helmet. The 3D printed nature of this actually lends itself excessively well to the old comic designs, as the 3D printing really excels at producing large monocolored parts easily. And the rough texture left behind by the 3D printing process does help dull the sheen of all the surfaces on the figure, making it look even more like it jumped right off the desaturated old page. Honestly, it was kind of a stroke of genius to use this medium to reproduce that art style. The head is basically perfect. I mean, I don't like it, but there is no denying that this is exactly what it should be. I just think that what it should be is uncanny and creepy. And this is where I get into my first suggestion on the actual figure. The face of the figure initially comes like this, with these extra parts implying a neck underneath. These don't have to exist, and I just clipped them off because they made him look like he had a thumb for a head. Without the neck pieces, your brain still fills in the gaps and you just assume that his neck is in shadow. It doesn't make his head look like it's floating. But that's much less important than the second one I have. The faceplate on this guy is swappable, allowing for different expressions of your choice. It's a great feature, but I'm not going to beat around the bush because the execution here is a problem. A capital P problem. The way you switch the face is by taking the head off the ball joint and slotting the new face into this T-shaped slot. And there is no barrier between the faceplate and the ball joint. The ball joint presses directly on the back of the faceplate from the inside. This came to me with two heads and a bunch of extra faceplates. So to test out the face swapping gimmick, I put a new face on the spare head and swapped the whole heads. When I went to pop off the head for the first time, the fact that the ball joint was pressing on the faceplate caused it to shear off the two lugs holding the face on. So my suggestion is to make the lugs more substantial. Either make them thicker or longer. Either way, they need to be more robust. Another route to take is to wall off the ball joint from the face so it can't put pressure and potentially break it off. Outside of that, this is a great feature I wish more figures would have, and it does help to even more fully realize the design you are trying to bring to life. If I had one criticism of the overall look, I'd say that the arms could stand to be longer. I don't know if you can edit the files if you buy them, but personally, I'd extend the arms until the wrists are about this point on the hip. But still, this is almost a perfect rendition of the character it's supposed to be. The accessories he comes with are alternate faceplates and visors. This alternate visor is supposed to look more clear like an actual one. It pulls off that effect pretty well considering it's a 3D printed part. He also comes with this gun. I've always hated how this thing doesn't have a traditional handle, instead it looks like you grip it by the magazine, but it does look about perfect for Scorponok's gun. Right down to the scope you can't use because the stock is in the way. And the weird, I don't know, heat shield that only covers half the gun from one side for some reason. Monologi did include an add-on piece to cover the whole thing. He also comes with this. I don't know what this is. Posability on this puts a lot of what Hasbro does to shame. Head pretty much only rotates as far as I know. I'm honestly afraid of breaking off another faceplate by trying to move it again. Shoulders seem a bit more limited than I think they're supposed to be. They only go out to here, but it seems like they are supposed to go all the way up to this point. One problem I have is with this section here. It wants to pop up every time I try to move the shoulders. A way to fix that could be to have a set of holes through the chest and have a pair of arms coming through the chest plate that you can push in. They could potentially fit into these slots here and hold this part in place at the very least in robot mode. Arms are only limited by the backpack and trying to go around, and the shoulder cannons can twiddle. Elbows are double jointed, allowing for more than a 90, but I think you could actually get more out of this bend if the elbow piece were a bit thinner. It would likely do a worse job at hiding the joint, but honestly, I don't think it would look that bad, and even if it did, I think most people would trade a bit of aesthetics for more posability. Wrist can't swivel. If you could figure out how to incorporate that, I think that would really help with the posing of the hands. More than making up for that though, the claws open and close, as well as having two, I guess, fingers? I suppose this guy types twice as well as Black Arachnia and Tarantulas. So, well more than average posing hands. He has a waist swivel, but you have to unpeg the tail to use it. Legs have all of the back and a reasonable amount of forward. I'm sure you've seen how they are doing hips on the War for Cybertron figures with how the skirts are actually built into the legs. If you could find a way to do that, Monologi, you'd be reducing the parts count so it'd be a little cheaper to produce, it would be more durable as there'd be no chance it was going to snap off if the user isn't careful, and it would increase the articulation. So, if you can swing that, it would be a huge improvement. Admirably, this guy can pretty easily stand on one foot. He's got killer double-jointed knees that go about as far as I've ever seen any figure go, and feet on a ball joint that allows for rotation, some pivot, and tilt. His heels are a bit small though, and he constantly wobbles like he wants to fall over. I think a way to improve these could be to have this intersection of the foot slide back. That would give it some longer and hopefully quite rigid inner heels. So, this is a very posable figure, much more so than average, but he is limited by the shoulders operating in what I assume is an unintendedly weak capacity. So yeah, a very good robot mode and a very accurate rendition of the comics character. Transformation on this is fast, breezy, and fun. It takes next to no time to get him into a scorpion mode, and I can't argue that it's not what he's supposed to look like. It's basically exactly what it needs to be. It even doesn't have the eyes in this mode, which is exactly accurate to the design from G1 in general. Though I personally would have put something on here that can pass for them. The back of the head just feels a bit plain with nothing. Since the goal of this is to be as G1 accurate as possible, maybe make it a separate head option? I honestly feel like there's almost more sculpted detail on display now. We've kept the articulation in the arms, gained 8 new legs that are strong enough to hold up the figure, and a tail with 9 sections. Unfortunately, it's not really long enough to reach any target that's not on top of him. He can sting himself real good though. So yeah, this is a really good figure, especially when you know that it's just what a fan did on their own. It looks exactly like the chosen art style, it's basically perfectly accurate in both modes, transformation is fun, posing is great, and it's pretty much any scale you want it to be, at least as long as I'm not misunderstanding something. If you want a Marvel Comics inspired Scorponok, be it one that fits Masterpiece or Chug, and you can get access to a 3D printer, I am more than happy to recommend this, and unlike basically any other time, there is the real potential here that all the problems that I listed could be fixed by the creator, at which point I'd not really have any more negatives to say. You take my criticisms and you fix them, and suddenly I don't have criticisms anymore. Funny how that works, right? Monologi, if you want me to cover more of these, I'd love to look at them, because you did awesome work here. I don't know how good a job I did expressing that in this, because I got real focused on telling you what I think could make the figure even better, but even if you don't do any of what I said, this is still an awesome figure, and I'd love to see what you cook up next. And before we go, I have the monthly shoutouts to cover. Just a reminder, if you want to shout out, all you need to do is send me an email at perspectiveendshoutouts@gmail.com. You don't need one, but if you want your channel shouted out and a link to it included in the video, then please tell me the social media page you want shouted out, post a link to that page, and describe what your channel is about, because sometimes figuring that out can be a bit difficult. I don't want you to get your hopes up though. My shoutouts aren't worth much. I really wish they did more for people, but typically a shoutout from me will get someone 3 to 6 new subscribers. But I've seen multiple times where it didn't get someone a single new sub. So temper your expectations, please. I really wish I could do more for everyone that I shout out. Spinny Boy! He makes stop motions. At this point, if you comment on my videos, I just assume that you're a stop motion animator. But he also makes other kinds of videos, and according to him, he's recently stepped up his editing game. Sushi Zushi. He's a Let's Player. Something different? Has hell frozen over? Sometimes he plays games, sometimes he reviews games, and sometimes he talks Transformers reveals. Gamer Freddy. He sent me 2 different versions of his logo, so I'll include both of them. He does some live action skits, but mainly Minecraft roleplays on Five Nights at Freddy's. This is not a market of video I even knew existed. Mason the Awesome. They want you to know that that title is a lie. Seems like the truth to me, though. They do reviews and live streams. Javlock. He makes self-described, painfully unfunny memes and stop motions. I think that there is some kind of rule that I can't do 4 shoutouts in a row without at least one of them being a stop motion animator. Large 2007. That's how I'm supposed to read that, right? Like, I'm not supposed to read out the individual letters, right? He makes stop motions, but I feel like this message is abnormally confident. Sharky Dude 9. That's quite the channel banner right there. He and a group of friends and family make comedy skits and sometimes play games together in live streams. Smitty plays, does not play, instead makes stop motions. I feel like your brand is confused. The full sets you make are impressive though. Avery Bell has a strange request that we will get to at the end. Bot Studio has a video called Bad Tapes that he wants you all to see. If you do, prepare to feel a little sad. Haymaster Studio 3.0. His birthday was actually just about a week ago on the 23rd, and I totally missed the message. Sorry dude, and happy belated birthday. I always read this as Neox Cliff, but I assume it's supposed to be Neo X Cliff? Anyways, loyal Twitter follower Neo X Cliff is making memes and art on Twitter, some of which you may recognize. Trigger wants me to slay r/Star Wars me. Apparently it's an inside joke. Okay, Avery Bell. First off, he wants me to shout out his brother, who has a gaming channel. Go check out Bellboy for some truly bizarre games I didn't even know existed. Now for what Avery wants me to do. He wants me to mock the Transformers X Five Nights at Freddy's fanfic he wrote. No joke, that's what he wants. This is going to be very uncomfortable for me because I don't want to insult any of you guys, but if this is what you want, Am I supposed to, like, read the whole thing on film or just insult it? This is going to be an anticlimax because I'm going to have to do this in a different video this week, because trying to cover this was making this one overlong. So stay tuned for later in the week when I torture myself with an inexplicable crossover that even the creator decided was unsalvageable. And that's not half of what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please, share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.